Let's unbox the Black Series 6-inch figure of Jedi Master Sol from the Acolyte. Varykino. If it's Star Wars, we collect it. Hello there, thanks for visiting Villa Varykino. The Black Series 6-inch figures from the Acolyte have landed in New Zealand. We just had our school holidays and associated toy sales, so I was really crossing my fingers that the Acolyte figures would show up while those sales were running, and thankfully yesterday I finally found them. I was able to find all 6 from the first wave of Black Series figures at one of my favorite toy stores while they still had 20% off all Star Wars figures, so of course I picked up all 6. I filmed a very excited first look at all 6 still in their boxes. I'll have that video linked down below, and after a little bit of discussion with my husband, we decided that Jedi Master Sol would be the first one that we would open. So we've got him here today and I'm so excited. Of course, we've got this new Black Series packaging as well to check out. So thank you so much for hanging out with me today. Coming up really soon, I'll get the figure out of the box, we'll get him out, we'll get all the accessories. It's going to be a lot of fun. But first, let's take one last look at the new Black Series style packaging. The Black Series Acolyte figures are the first from Hasbro in this new style of Black Series packaging. And I gotta say, I was a little sad about the older style being sort of retired with this new one, but now that I finally have it in hand, I think I really like it. Well, something I noticed when I first picked it up is this is made of much sturdier cardboard than the original ones that we've had recently. This is, and you can see by some of the cross sections, actually corrugated cardboard, which gives it a really sturdy feel, especially when you get them in hand. I really like this big wide window. We see a lot more of the figure packaged inside, which is really nice. So we've got this black cardboard trim. Of course, it works so well for the Black Series. And we've got some changes to the Black Series packaging style. We've got the character name up the side here instead of down here like it was before. We've got Jedi Master Sol written in this sort of orange-red accent color for the Acolyte series. We can see that color accent stripe across the bottom of the window like we did before, but of course now we've got the character name down the side. We also have the series number. This one is number 02 from the Acolyte series written there on the front as well. So I quite like that. We do still have a window that wraps around the side there to let in a little bit more light. We do not have a top window in this style, so a little bit darker, but we've got a much bigger window in the front. So I think that that is a fair trade-off. We do still have that awesome side art on this new style of packaging, but it is a straight edge. It's no longer angled. You can see that it is a very square-shaped box. I like the artwork for Jedi Master Sol here, tipped a little bit to the side with his lightsaber. Of course, with the accent color, it kind of gives his lightsaber a red appearance. Of course, we can see from the packaging, he has a blue lightsaber. We've got his name written down the bottom, Jedi Master Sol in black text. Moving on to the back, we have that accent color stripe here as usual. Again, number 02 from Star Wars The Acolyte. And we've got that same side art repeated here, a little bit zoomed in. We've got Jedi Master Sol written here, and instead of a blurb for the character, we have a high level blurb for the Acolyte series. I guess Hasbro's trying to avoid spoilers here. At the end of the High Republic era, a former Padawan reunites with her Jedi Master to investigate a series of crimes. But the forces they confront turn out to be far more sinister and personal than anticipated. So, doesn't even sort of mention OSHA or anything in there. And of course, that blurb is repeated a few times in different languages. The same sort of copyright toy warnings across the bottom and on the underside. Something that's new here, we have this cutout, which is going to be really helpful for opening the bottom flap to actually get our action figures out. We can see we've got one strip of tape there to cut through to open up. I like opening my toys from the underside. It leaves this top panel looking sealed and pretty for when I put it on my shelf. And of course, because we've got this much thicker cardboard, I'm very appreciative of this extra sort of little opening access point there. Overall, I think this looks fantastic, but let's just quickly take a look compared to one of the older style Black Series boxes. So immediately I can see that these new ones are a little bit shorter, but I'll take that trade-off because the characters never really filled the full height. And if you already have your shelving space aligned to fit these ones on, slightly shorter is not going to make any difference. They'll still fit in the same space. We can see that the window is much wider, both width and taller than the original windows. They start just a little bit lower, but extend a little bit lower here as well and a little bit wider, which I do really like. Gives us a little bit of space, a little bit of breathing room around the characters, especially when we have a number of accessories there as well. We can see that the box does look a little bit wider rather than the sort of narrow frontage because of course we've got the squared off edge for that character art as well, which means if you like to keep your boxes lined up on the shelves, these ones can now hit square into your shelving. If you put these ones square on the shelf, you would have the sort of angled. So if you wanted to do the mosaic, you had to tip your boxes to the side to line these all up straight. So I kind of like this new one. They will fit like a book on a bookshelf and you'll fit a lot of them nice and tight. To my eye, they look perhaps a little bit narrower as well, a little shallower than these ones as well. I know the angle could be playing with my eyes a little bit. And of course, those other ones had that window at the top. I don't really feel like it really let in a little bit of light. And for me personally, it was always a menace to keep dust out of this little cutout. For me, as a collector, I'll take a little bit of ease of dusting for getting rid of that window. So overall, we can see we've got a slightly different hanger tag here. We've got this clear one with a cutout, which I kind of like as opposed to these black ones, which always seem to get bent quite easily. I guess time will tell to see if I like these ones, but there's just something clean and minimal about them. Overall, I do own a lot of Black Series boxes like this, and at first I was annoyed that Hasbro was yet again changing it up because there's something about the packaging of the Black Series that just looks fantastic if you decide to keep your figures in their box. But I gotta say, the more black on these ones running down the side really sort of brings in the Black Series. Of course, this is a little bit more leaning back to those old original Black Series boxes. So I get there's a little bit of nostalgia there as well. I like the squared off edges. It just looks clean and tidy. I'm not keeping my new Acolyte figures in their boxes. I'm going to be opening up each and every one of them, but I am really tempted by this new packaging style. I really hope we get some iconic characters reissued in this new packaging style really soon because I absolutely love it. But enough about the cardboard. It's really cool to see the new packaging style, but it's definitely time to get Jedi Master Soul out of the packaging so we can check out all of these cool details. I'm a little bit nervous. This is my first new Black Series packaging style box that I'm going to be opening. So I've got my scissors ready. Let's snip through this tape and let's see how easy it is to get these figures out because I'm going to be opening up a few of them over the next couple of days. Let's hope this flap actually is easy. Okay, there we go. Now let's get inside. Okay, we can see that we've got that bright interior color. We've got a little sort of holder bit there. And okay, that cardboard bit wants to come out as well. Okay, so we can see we've got a little bit of a printing pattern here on that insert, a little bit of sort of a panel. That's kind of fun. And then we've got the figure in the tray there as well. We've got a bit of sellotape holding the lightsaber in place, and we can see the soft goods cloak is going to be poking through the plastic. This always makes me a little bit anxious, but it does a pretty good job of holding everything in place. So let's get him out of the plastic tray so we can check out the details. Just another note before I put the box away, the front window is actually fully part of the new box style. Of course, when we're opening up those other side angle boxes, pulling the figure tray out, the window does actually come with it. It is just sort of folded over the figure tray. So I feel like this is giving a really sturdy feel to the box, and it looks great even without the figure inside. So now I have Jedi Master Soul and his one lightsaber accessory out of the packaging so we can take a closer look. This is really exciting. I know it's just the packaging that has changed. The figure is, you know, not going to be too different in terms of articulation and paint apps and all that kind of stuff than other figures that we've opened recently, but there's just something exciting about it being from a new series with new packaging style. So let's get stuck in. Of course, we can see that he has a brown soft goods Jedi cloak that is covering up a lot of the details. So I will remove that shortly to check out articulation and details hidden underneath. But first, let's take a closer look just as an overall first appearance sort of look. Now, there was only one Jedi Master Soul figure left on the shelf when I found my Acolyte figures. So if there are any paint flaws or any details that are a little bit different, I didn't get to compare it alongside another one. And I do mention that because on mine there is this small little cut here, and I'm not sure if this is supposed to be here or not. It kind of almost looks intentional because of how sort of neatly it is done and its position. It almost kind of looks like I can sort of use it to sort of fold over two parts here and kind of maybe cinch it up together, or maybe it is just a big cut that's not supposed to be there. The thing with soft goods is you can go in there and edit them with scissors if you find that perhaps there's too much volume. You can see the robe sleeves are quite long when worn down, so you know, you can always go in there and change things up a little bit. I do like the overall fit and style of the Jedi cloak. We've got this really big hood that folds down over the shoulders. You can see it going all the way there in the back. And we've got a little bit of stitching detail, obviously closing that hood up. I like the way it sits open. I obviously need to sort of change it a little bit so that we can show his hands a little bit. It always looks a little bit slumpy when Jedi robes completely cover the hands. I know they're supposed to be sort of big and full of volume, but when it's action figure scale, it just looks a little bit off. But I really like the way that it sits around his shoulders. Just sort of, sometimes it looks a little oddly scaled when we get this sort of really bunched up fabric where we're sort of trying to get the folds to sort of sit around the shoulders and the hood and everything like that. A really big hood. So let's see what it looks like. Can we even lift this up? Okay. I was going to test to see what the hood liked over him because it is so big. And the first things I see, it's actually sewn in place there. We've got some brown stitches, so that is as high as I can lift the hood up there in the back. Of course, these are some stitches. You just go in there with some scissors or a seam ripper and you can carefully remove those stitches, so I would be able to move that. But generally speaking, if there are stitches there, they are to sort of hold it in place for a specific reason, so I don't undo the stitching on my soft goods elements for my Star Wars action figure. So I'm going to leave that there in place, but it would be easy to edit if you felt like you wanted to. So I'm just going to have a little bit of a play and see how it's going to look like if I wanted to sort of wear it a little bit more closer up and perhaps looking like he sort of closed his robes up a little bit, just to sort of see. That's not too bad. I think that little notch is, you know, showing itself a little bit more there, but yeah. It's kind of looking a little bit more like a dressing gown when I put it all together, especially because these sleeves are long. So I really like the way that it sort of fits in terms of the length. We've got a good volume there. I like the hood. You can see we've got those side seams stitched neatly in there. Just a little bit of a look at the inside. We've just got that one little row of stitching there, seaming the pieces together. Looks very tidy, and I like the edges, all very nice and sharp and clean there. No fuzzy edges here. It's not very crumpled either. We've got a few creases, but it was tucked away quite nicely and straight in behind the figure when it was packaged. So it came out of the box looking pretty much ready to go. But I feel like there's some really cool detail on the figure hidden underneath. So I'm going to sort of swing his arms towards the back. I find that is the easiest way to get these robes off. See if we can sort of pinch those a little bit more towards the back, and we'll see how easily we can slide this robe off his arms there. Okay. So I'm just going to put him to the side so I can just take a little bit of a look. We don't have any seams around the shoulders, so that was fairly easy to take off there. Just pull those sleeves. We can get a bit of a shape. Look at the shape there. Not complicated construction. We've got a little bit of detail going in there sort of around the shoulders and where the hood would be. I kind of like the fact that the hood was sort of stitched down in place. I quite like that. Overall, a nice classic Black Series Jedi robe, which of course, if you like to customize your figures, this can probably go pretty easily onto another character. I think that that's a pretty good soft goods cloak. But now that we take that off, we can see a detail that is completely hidden when Sol is in his box, and that is his really shiny forearm armor. Of course, we see a lot of the Jedi in the High Republic with some armored elements and a lot of gold tone elements as well. And there is something about being able to see this gold armor that just completely changes the look of this figure. I think this looks really fun. A little bit more reminiscent of a lot of the High Republic book cover art with sort of the gold and the yellow. This looks really cool. Finally getting some Black Series High Republic characters. So I'm gonna, that gold is distracting me. It's really grabbing my attention because it was so well hidden under that cloak, but let's do a little bit of a top-down look. So let's start off with the face. And I think the likeness of the sculpt is pretty good. In our house, we kind of refer to this hairstyle as the Qui-Gon, the sort of the half up, where you've got the top half of your hair sort of pulled back into a ponytail and the rest of it worn loose. Of course, Qui-Gon rocked that hairstyle in The Phantom Menace. And of course, if you have watched The Acolyte, you will know that there is a lot of similarities between Jedi Master Sol and Qui-Gon. So I thought that was kind of a fun little nod there as well. Just kind of made me think about it. And I like the sculpting of the hair. We've got a lot of texture and detail. It's not flat. It's got sort of quite some sort of feathering here. We've got a lot of texture detail. I can see the sort of the banding around the ponytail there in the back. We've got the sort of soft bits out here at the front, sort of hanging down. I like that it doesn't just look flat. We've got a lot of texture. We can see across the top of the hair there as well. Lots of fabulous texture. Really like it. We don't have too much in the way of face art because of course he is humanoid. So we've just got this standard sort of human painted detail, eyebrows, eyes, and a little bit at the lips there as well. Fairly sort of neutral expression for Sol, as we would expect. Nothing too sort of dramatic. No sort of fight scene yell. I always think of some of those early prequel era Mace Windu action figures that were always sort of stuck in this eternal sort of yelling expression. So I do like the neutral expression. The hair is obviously a separate piece. It does look very well glued in place, matched up along the seam lines. Sometimes you get figures where the hair and other sort of parts are just a little misaligned, so you kind of see the parts where they're supposed to be sort of seated into. Nice and tidy here. And I do like the paint app. The digital painting era, it just gives us some absolutely fantastic facial details. No googly eyes here. I like that. Of course, we've got a skin tone neck, and now we can see all of the different colored elements of his High Republic Jedi tunic, starting with sort of a mid-tone chocolate brown under tunic. Then we've got his paler sort of Obi-Wan colored sort of beige robes and his yellow High Republic tunic sashes here over the top, the tabards worn over, and we can see that they form a single style here in the back. We think about the prequel era, they are often sort of long sashes worn over where they kind of meet at the back. In this High Republic era, we've got a large section here, kind of almost like a bit of a t-shirt at the back, and that splits and comes over the front. So that's really fun. Some of the other sort of Black Series figures in the style have some soft goods elements used for the lower robe. We can see that we've got a plastic split here so that we can still get some articulation going there in the legs. So we'll definitely test that out. But yeah, I like the sculpting here. We've got a bit of a gap here between his torso and that thick plastic belt. We've got a bit of yellow paint just across the top of that belt there, which I can see when I'm looking straight down. It's less noticeable when I'm looking straight at it. But of course, we can kind of see the belt, if I move his arm out of the way, is a little bit wider than his torso, because of course we've got to be able to sort of move him around a little bit, so it's not going to be really tight cinching it in. We're only going to really see that if we're sort of looking at it from this perspective. We can see that the belt is a continuous plastic piece going around, so it's going to be just a little bit wider than his waist, so we can still get some of that movement. Gotta say, that is very tight. He's not, oh, I can just kind of get him to there, but there's a lot of resistance there. that's taken quite a bit for me to turn it around. Not that much front and back either, I gotta say. I was trying to be looking at the details, but I really just wanted to see if that belt was really going to limit. You can see it's kind of squishy, so it's not really the belt that's giving us that resistance. It feels like the attachment point that's hidden underneath the belt that's giving me that resistance. So hopefully that belt gives us a bit of a rubbery lower half here. You can see I can kind of flick that up, because this is a huge big piece of plastic across the back. I was wondering how easily we might be able to flex that. At the front, we've also, this is not a split, that is seamed across there. We only get those sort of splits here. So I can just kind of pull that up, but it is kind of wanting to go as one piece, and it's quite wide. So that's potentially going to impact how acrobatic we can get our poses for this figure. I really like the painting and the details on his belt. Of course, we've got a slightly different style of Jedi belt for the High Republic era. We can see, compared to, say, some of the prequel characters, he's got a very wide belt here. We've got sort of a black sash, brown leather, and then a black strip of leather through that. We've got the attachment point for his lightsaber hilt, which we'll test out later. We've got some silver pouch or capsules here. We've got a little tool on his belt, a nicely sculpted little pouch here. Pretty plain across the back here, just with a little bit of detail. We can see some of those sort of buckles and things like that. And of course, we've got the gold High Republic era buckle here in the front, which I really like. I think it's the same. No, that's a different gold. I think that's a different gold to his braces here. It looks just a little bit more yellow toned. We've got a little bit more of a brilliant shine here on his braces. And of course, we've got to check those out. They look absolutely fantastic. Kind of like a starburst with that gold and those sculpting lines as well. So I can't quite get his hand to kind of match up there in the back, to sort of fully match up that, because of course this hand rocks side to side in terms of the articulation, and we can kind of twist it around. But I really like those bracers. They just look absolutely fantastic. I love the bright sunny sort of color. So we've got a little bit of paint overspill on this side. We've got a little bit of gold that is just sort of touched on the tunic here at the top. Almost didn't spot that. It is a pale color that might scratch off, but of course that was completely hidden under the tunic. I couldn't see that. So this hand does have a little bit more of an articulation. Where can I see that point? Okay, this one's going to rock side to side as well, and I can pivot that there as well. So again, I'm not going to completely match that up, but that looks really nice against those sort of black, darker gloves. And we can see the sculpted sort of straps where that would be attaching those armor pieces over his gloves. Really fun to see a Jedi wearing sort of gloves and armor. If you know me, you know that I play the video game Star Wars: The Old Republic, where you can customize your characters, and there's something about the game. I like kitting out my characters with armor and gloves. It just sort of somehow looks more complete, even though we don't really see many Jedi wearing gloves and armor in the live action series. We do see it a little bit more in the Clone Wars, because of course some of the Jedi are wearing clone armor as well. But overall, we've got some interesting textures between the different sort of fabric sculptings. We can see that we've got some sort of trim here on the yellow tabard sections, raising up at the edges there, which gives it a nice distinction between that and the underrobes. We've got these tabards kind of covering over the shoulders. So let's go and test out. I feel like these tabards have a rubbery feel as well. The way that they're kind of sitting, I can wiggle that. So the whole yellow section, they are attached to the tunic down here at the bottom, but at the top, this yellow tabard section is separate to the tunic underneath. So while I'm here, let's go test out the articulation and see how well I can get the arms up. Oh, you can see that it does actually pull into the shape of the tabards, not too tight. you can see I'm just kind of wrinkling and pulling up the sort of rubbery yellow there at the tabards, and I'm getting his arms to about here before that really wants to fight me, and I end up just sort of tipping his torso side to side. So I can get his arms to about there. But I do really like the sculpting on the sleeves. We can see that we've sort of got these really sort of strong fabric shapes here, in the way that his sort of tunic sleeves would be hanging. And we've got some nice sculpting through the elbow there as well. Let's go test that out, because of course he comes with a lightsaber. We're going to want to do some lightsaber fighting poses there. I do like the pose of this hand. We've kind of got an outstretched finger, which of course is not a blaster trigger finger, but there's something about it that perhaps in this context looks a little bit more like a gesture or a force move. I like that sculpt. And then of course the right hand is, generally speaking, the hand holding a lightsaber for most force using characters, and we've got more of the sort of classic C-shaped hand grip there on the right hand. The box has him holding his lightsaber in his right hand, so I'm going to pose the figure in that hand there as well. But I kind of like the gesture there as well. Moving down, we've got some standard brown pants, not too much in the way of detail. We've got some really interesting sculpting patterns going on there. I can see that articulation point there at the top of the thigh, so we should be able to, sort of swivel the thighs from side to side, sort of get that outward rotation there a little bit. I've got a little bit of sort of plastic kind of residue here on the knee, which is not too much in terms of grabbing my attention. I can just kind of see it now that I've got them out of the packaging. That's something to look out for. I can just sort of see the articulation point on this knee. This one, it's a little bit more hidden. But I do like the fact that the pants kind of drape down here at the front. So we've kind of got all these sort of fabric wrinkles at the knee. But, oh, that was quite easy. I like that. Not too rough. Feels like he's going to hold that position well. And again, fairly fluid movement there. I can get it to about that point. And we'll test out, oh, very stiff ankles. Okay, I can get to about there. And then it's providing quite a lot of resistance there. But I can get him into sort of a kneeling position about there. We're going to get some cool poses, I think, with some of these Acolyte figures. There were some really cool fight scenes. I am really hoping we get some other characters not too late in the sort of collecting pipeline. There were some really cool characters that I think will really flesh out a lot of scenes. Of course, we need the Stranger. We need some other characters like Cal Nacker. Honestly, there's going to be some really cool scenes we're going to be able to build if they give us a couple more characters. Overall, he's pretty much as I expected in terms of the paint and the detail. A couple of little things that I kind of wish were just subtly different. Obviously, I've got a little bit of a paint flaw there, and just that little bit of sort of plastic, I don't know how to describe it, a little bit of sort of residue there on his knee that's just catching my attention. Minor things, minor things. In terms of the actual sculpting and detail, I like the expression. It's pretty standard for a Black Series sort of Jedi-esque character. It reminds me a lot of sort of a High Republic version of, say, Obi-Wan in terms of the tunic style and the coloring. It's giving me sort of Episode 3 Obi-Wan vibes. And I do have a Black Series Obi-Wan figure to compare him to later on. So there we go. I think he's pretty cool. I really like the colors. The High Republic is such a fun, modern sort of era to explore. I say modern, I know it's before the prequels, but just in terms of lore, there is so much that we can have fun with this. So many books that I've got to catch up on there. And he stands pretty well. I do like his Jedi boots. They're a little bit more red toned than I was expecting for this character. I really like the sort of the brown and the gold. So of course they're going to be a little bit more warm toned there as well. Nothing much in terms of sort of buckles or anything like that. We've just got a bit of a stripe detail there on the outside with sort of a bit of a leather wrinkle going on there. overall, really happy. I liked his cloak, but honestly, it's a shame that it hides all of these gorgeous armor details. Let's take a quick look at his lightsaber. So one of the things that I kind of wish Black Series did was give us two versions of the hilt. One with it just being the hilt, so we can attach it to the belt, because we can see that we come with that attachment peg, and one version with the blade, so we don't have to have one or the other. Sometimes these pegs make me very anxious, and I don't want to ruin the one lightsaber I have, perhaps, you know, snapping this peg off, or for whatever reason, you know, damaging it. I do really like how well it sort of attaches to the blade. I was almost looking at it thinking, is this just all sculpted as one piece? But it is actually able to be removed. There we go. It's a little bit stiff, but yes, there we have that attachment peg. Again, if you break this off, taking these in and out, it's kind of game over at that point, and I kind of wish we didn't have to do that. It would be not too expensive for Hasbro to just give us two of this, honestly, two of this. And honestly, I'm not the biggest fan of having these pegs on the lightsabers that the characters are holding. Sometimes it can really get in the way. I know we could go in there with an X-Acto knife and shave that off, but we really shouldn't have to. I do like Soul's lightsaber, quite unique, quite a dark colored saber. It's almost kind of hard to show the details there. So we do have an attachment peg. I'm hoping it's not going to get stuck in this little hole. We can see that we've got a sculpted sort of Jedi lightsaber holder there, and that goes in nice and easily. That was not a fight, thank goodness. Sometimes I'm really worried if you have to push too hard on those little pegs. I have collector nightmares about breaking the pegs off into those little points there. So thankfully that comes in and out easily. So let's get that assembled, because of course when it comes to Jedi characters with lightsabers, I just think they look so much cooler with their lightsaber blades in their hands. So let's have a see how easily he's going to hold this one. Oh, that just goes right in. That's not tight at all, which can be a bit of a trick. I don't like wrestling with these things, but that one just kind of sits in his hand. Oh, okay. That's going to be a little bit different in terms of trying to get him to hold his lightsaber. He holds it okay, but that's a lot looser than I was expecting. There we go. Okay, so we might actually really try and get some sort of two-handed poses to try and provide a bit more stability there. And his thumb is just going to wrestle with me for this one. I'll do that later, I think, because yes, I was not expecting that to be so loose. It just kind of wants to sink down in his hand there a little bit. A little bit odd on that one. I know that Hasbro does not control the design of character lightsabers, but they do control the sculpting of the hands, and just a little bit of a tighter grip I think would have really helped here, especially since we obviously have a unique sculpt because of this new hand armor there as well. So I mentioned that I had an episode 3 Obi-Wan to compare to, so let's just get Soul to stand upright. And we can see in episode 3 Obi-Wan, there was something about the tunics and the colors of the boots that I thought would be really interesting. And the lightsaber colors are very different. We can see that this is the archive reissue of the episode 3 Obi-Wan Black series from a number of years ago. We can see that we've kind of got the tunic details here, similar color boots, a little bit of a similar vibe. Obi-Wan's lightsaber from this particular issue was very pale. I thought this was an interesting blue. I happen to have the Cal Kestis figure here as well, and I feel like, for those interested, the blue of these two figures is a lot closer. I think that's pretty much the same blue, but his Soul's lightsaber has the same sort of thickness as the Obi-Wan lightsaber. Cal Kestis is very skinny, so we do have some differences there just in terms of looking at other lightsabers. Something about the Soul lightsaber feels very short as well. Obviously Cal Kestis has a very long hilt, but yeah, his looks a little shorter. If I just put Cal Kestis down and we compare it to Obi-Wan's saber, if I look at the hilt, the blade lengths matching up the hilts, it's just a little bit shorter, just a tiny bit shorter there at the top, trying to match those up as best I can. But of course, they have to be trying to be accurate to the show there. So I think this looks pretty cool if you like to create custom figures. Obviously, this version has those awful older articulation points at the knees. I'm really not a fan of that articulation point. This new Jedi Master Soul has a sort of better hidden articulation, which is really good. Let's just put Cal Kestis away there. So if you want to create, you know, custom Jedi characters, obviously we've got things like the High Republic bracers here, which are going to be different to the prequel era tunics and things like that. But there are some really fun details there. And I can't wait to see some of the other sort of prequel Jedi done in the new sort of sculpting and detail style. The face sculpts on these feel like they're, you know, improving as well. His face looks bigger compared to the Obi-Wan that I've got here as well. It could be the hair, but his face and head definitely look better proportioned to his body compared to the Obi-Wan. This Obi-Wan also had a soft goods lower half there so that we could still get a lot of high kicks and things like that. But Obi-Wan doesn't have the tabard parts hanging down in the back, just his lower robe, so we can do that. Of course, we get the restriction of this part here in the back. It's rubbery, but one thing that I forgot to test was to see how high we could kick his legs up. So thank you to Obi-Wan for reminding me, because of course he's got those soft goods parts. So let's see how far I can force his legs up quite high. I can get to about there. You can kind of hear it creaking, but it's going to sit about there. And obviously we can't really sit him in a chair or a Starship cockpit, because we've got these bits at the back kind of sticking down further. But I can get his legs up to about there before that really starts to impact on the flexibility there. And personally, I'm probably going to have him more in a standing up detail. So I don't want to risk deforming his lower plastic tabard parts by having him in that position for too long. Yeah, I kind of wish this belt was a little tighter in. If I sort of squeeze it, you can see on the side here how much sort of extra space we have alongside his torso. It's kind of interesting that it is so rubbery. That might be because this is formed as a single piece. There isn't a join. Just actually assembling the action figure, it might need to just be that size to like get it onto the figure. And from straight on, it's not really standing out. It's when I start to sort of manipulate it and squeeze it that I can sort of see that extra gap there at the sides. But yeah, I think this is a cool figure. It's a new character from a new show in a new era. There's some really fun details here, and I think he looks really cool. Now I've got to decide if I'm going to put his cloak on for display or have him like this, because I really like these gold details and I think it looks really cool. Of course, the Jedi and the High Republic have two versions of robes. They sort of have fancy dress robes, and then they have mission robes. So I'm wondering if we'll get to see some other versions of some of these Jedi characters that we have, especially since we do see some of the Jedi characters like Jedi Master Soul in two different time periods. We have a lot of flashback episodes, so we see younger versions of some of these characters. So we are seeing different versions as well. So maybe over time we'll get some of those other variant versions of these Jedi characters as well. I love the High Republic. Such a fun time to be exploring in both storytelling and collecting figures. This guy looks really cool. So there you go. That was my very first unboxing from the Acolyte range of Black Series figures that have just shown up here in New Zealand. Oh, I can't wait to get the others out. I think getting all 4 of the Jedi characters all together is going to look really, really cool. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today as I opened up another Star Wars Black Series figure and had a lot of fun checking out all of the details. I hope you have a wonderful morning, afternoon, or evening wherever you are in the galaxy, and let's hang out again very soon for more Star Wars fun. May the Force be with you. If you're a Black Series fan, I've also unboxed the Obi-Wan Kenobi Jabeam figure. That video is linked here in case you haven't already seen it, as well as a whole Black Series unboxing playlist. This is the way.